All right, I've got my coffee. Buckle up. Things could be brewing. Things could be brewing. I sat here just over 24 hours ago when the Warriors were chasing literally every star under the sun and thought that, hey, the KD stuff, the LeBron stuff, unrealistic. They're just doing their due diligence, being desperate, trying to do something. And now I sit here and I actually think this is a legitimate possibility. This Kevin Durant stuff is gaining traction to the point where it's hard not to get your expectations up. It's hard not to get to a point now where you think that this could happen and not get to a point where we're probably going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. Chris says, what's up, mate? Hey, Chris, how you going? Let me know what your thoughts are on this Kevin Durant stuff. So for people that don't know, The Athletic just had a big report an hour ago, basically. Sam Amick, Anthony Slater, and also, was it David Aldridge, I think, as well, was the third one? Yeah. So the big stuff really to come from this. Now, a few things from a non-Warrior standpoint in regard to Durant. Well, I mean, this all involves Golden State, of course, but you've got the Dallas Mavericks interested in Kevin Durant and have a dream of adding him to Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving. So KD and Kyrie back together with Anthony Davis. Does that mean Clay would be on his way out in such a trade? They did say, The Athletic, though, quoted that it's unlikely. But the mere idea of Durant joining Dallas star-studded group sheds new light on the thinking of Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison, who's obviously copying it a lot at the moment. The Houston Rockets are another team who could speed up their rebuild. In fact, would you even call it a rebuild now? They're 32-17 on the season. They're one of the best teams in the Western Conference, but obviously they've got a lot of young players, a lot of future draft capital that they could put into a trade for Kevin Durant. So right now it looks like the Warriors, the Mavericks, although more unlikely, and the Rockets. So probably the Warriors' biggest competition here for Kevin Durant is the Houston Rockets. Sorry, every time my watch beeps, I've just got to look down. Just a message from a colleague of mine. Nothing overly important. Yeah, so the biggest stuff as well from a Warrior standpoint, just to get on with this report from The Athletic, this is the most fascinating part of things. So in exploratory conversations, the Warriors have only been met with an exorbitant asking price in theoretical structures, essentially everything of future value. Considering the tricky spot the Suns seem to find themselves, league sources say four-time All-Star forward Draymond Green, who has an established relationship with fellow Michigan State alum and Suns owner Matt Ishbia, is among the Warriors players Phoenix is known to covet. Does this mean, therefore, that it could be Draymond Green, not Andrew Wiggins, that is dealt in a Kevin Durant trade? Draymond Green. On top of that, it goes on to state that the Suns also have indicated a level of interest in fourth-year forward Jonathan Kuminga, a player the Warriors drafted 7th overall in 2021, have been protective of in most trade discussions for years and still view as part of their future. But Durant's potential availability and this once unthinkable notion of him reuniting with the franchise he helped lead to 2 titles has a way of altering the discussion. Wow. This is crazy stuff. There's a lot of different things. You've even got like Suns people now actually starting that they went from a position of the Suns are not going to trade Durant. They're not even listening to offers to actually, you know what, this could happen. I just saw Brandon Pajemski before. I saw his Instagram story. He's got a photo of like him, KD, and Guy Santos on the floor from Friday's game, and that he posted 2 hours ago. I mean, do we really think that can be a coincidence that I'm just going to get it back up. Do we really think that's a coincidence that Pods 2 hours ago, he's not even in it. It's just Guy Santos, Loon. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's Guy Santos, Durant, and like Loon's in it and Booker's in the background, and he's just tagged Guy Santos. Why is Pods posting that 2 hours ago? For what reason? All right, a few of your comments. Do you think we could win a chip even if we get Durant? Well, that's that's the question here that I think is going into the background a little bit is, are the Warriors, even if they get Durant, are they good enough to win a championship? Now, they're already like a fair way back this season. Like, we're over halfway through the season. Is this a case of getting KD, see what we can do the rest of the season, but the focus is really on next year? Maybe. I don't know. I think I definitely feel that the Warriors, they'd still be up against it. Like Steph, KD, whatever, Wiggins, even maybe whatever's left of this team, they could be dangerous, but ultimately they're probably still not going to get home court advantage for the first round of the playoffs. Like, they're not going to get a top 4 seed from here. Maybe they get to 6 and avoid the play-in tournament, maybe. But I think there's obviously got to be, yes, Kevin Durant has obviously played here, won two titles with the Warriors and stuff like that. But there would be a reintegration process, particularly if there's other players involved. You've got to think, if it's a 5-for-2, 5-for-3 trade or whatever, the Warriors would have to fill out their roster with buyout guys, and there'd be so much drastic change to the roster that I'm not sure it's fair to expect that the Warriors would instantly elevate back into championship contention. And then from next season, you're going to have Kevin Durant turning 37 years old, and then Steph Curry turning 38 years old next season. So is that going to, get you back into championship contention? I have genuine question marks and concerns about it, but does that mean you don't go and make the trade? And I think that's the important thing here, is that a lot of us, including myself, we just want like a better product on the floor, a more entertaining, fun team to watch. And I said to a mate this morning, my mate said to me, he's like, oh, well, you know what? They're not going to necessarily have the same success as they did first time around. Everyone's older. They don't have a good roster. There's no Andre Iguodala, no Sean Livingston, no Klay Thompson anymore. And I said, yeah, you're right. Like, they're probably not going to be a legitimate championship contender necessarily, but is it going to be a more entertaining product on the floor? Are they going to be better? Yeah, they will be. And so, therefore, it's going to be interesting. Do the Warriors just see that? And therefore, how much are they willing to sacrifice the future for Kevin Durant? That's going to be the fascinating thing. King says, if we get him, it will be nice. It'll be nice for 3 years, but we'll suck for the next 10 years. Again, depending on the assets, obviously, by the sounds of that report, Suns are asking for everything, which is fair enough. And you know what? The way that this reporting has been over the last 24 hours in terms of the Warriors' desperation, maybe we get to a point here where the Warriors actually do go all in for a 36-year-old Kevin Durant, and maybe believe that, hey, let's just go for it one more time. Let's just go for it, and we'll figure the rest out later. I do have some hope that it wouldn't be everything, that the Warriors would be able to keep some form of probably their young players, because I think the draft picks are probably the most valuable thing in this, because the one thing working in Golden State's favor as opposed to Houston, like if the Suns were having talks with both teams, is that if you're Phoenix, you have, I think, much more interest in Golden State's future draft capital than Houston's, because Houston, they could make a trade for KD and still have a bunch of young players, still have a bunch of picks left over for them to remain competitive long-term, even once KD retires, basically. So from that perspective, you'd imagine that the Warriors' future picks hold far more value than that of the Rockets, and therefore that helps the Warriors in negotiations. Chris says, as long as JK isn't involved, I'm cool with it, but I don't think it will. I think it's really up to if Ishbia, like, what is the Suns' plan here? Like, I'm surprised they have interest in Draymond, because I would have thought to myself, okay, well, maybe they go for a slight reset here around Booker. Beal, unfortunately, like, they are just stuck with Beal. This whole thing is really stemming from Bradley Beal. Because if Bradley Beal if Bradley Beal didn't have a no trade clause, there's probably a good possibility that the Suns have found a third team to take on his contract, and they've got Jimmy Butler by now. That's the cold hard facts of it. Like, this whole Kevin Durant thing is coming up because Bradley Beal doesn't want to leave Phoenix, and he's putting his feet in the ground saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not removing my no trade clause. Clearly Miami don't want Bradley Beal at all whatsoever. But I think at this point, again, if there was not a no trade clause, and Phoenix were able to trade Bradley Beal absolutely anywhere, I think some team, maybe the Raptors or someone, would be willing to take the rest of Bradley Beal's contract, maybe get a couple of assets out of it, and Jimmy Butler would be a Phoenix Sun by now. That's not the case. There's no indication. The Athletic just reported in their story there before that Bradley Beal's got no interest in waiving his no trade clause and going anywhere else. Like, he wants to stay a Sun, and therefore, is there a situation? There's a couple of situations that I think could arise. It's that Phoenix go for a mini reset here, say, okay, we've got Booker and Beal. Let's try and get a heap of assets back through and just try and reset a little bit here. Not necessarily have championship contention in our forefront of minds like we have over the past couple of years with everything they've done. Or it's they actually use Durant's contract as a means to get Butler and try to get Butler and a bunch of assets and then have Beal, Booker, and Durant. Beal, Booker, and Butler, the three Bs. But then again, it sounds like Draymond. And Draymond's the weird one for me because I think, well, surely if you're moving Durant as a scoring forward, you'd want another forward who's a scorer in Wiggins. Now, Wiggins isn't Kevin Durant, but similar types, I suppose. As Draymond is a playmaker. He's not a scorer, defensive first player. And then he's also like 5 years older than Wiggins. So if you are going for a mini reset here, why would you go for the player that's 5 years older? So that was initially surprising to me. But then when I think more about it, I'm like, well, Phoenix are 23rd in defensive rating right now. Like, their defense stinks. Maybe it's a case of they actually still want to be really competitive. And the way to do that is become a better defensive team. And getting Draymond, like, do you need that much scoring if you've got Beal and you've got Booker, right? Do you need Andrew Wiggins, or would you prefer to have the defensive excellence of Draymond Green? I don't know. It's such a weird scenario going on here, but there is a lot. Like Drew Hanlon, who is a very well-known skills coach and trainer of a bunch of big names around the league, basically has said that I think he tweeted out, "Buckle up." Oh my God, here we go. Oh boy. So the other thing to this as well. So KD has been listed as doubtful with an ankle sprain for Wednesday's game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And now let me just double check this. This is the case. This is really something if this is the case. Warriors, of course, play Utah tomorrow. We haven't even talked about the fact the Warriors won yesterday over the Orlando Magic. Not a great win, not a pretty win by any means, but a win nonetheless. You take it. And Wiggins played very well, team high 25 points. And Draymond in the last few minutes was also excellent. Draymond, probable left calf strain. Why would he be probable? I guess he was probable going into yesterday's game, but if he played and he didn't re-injure it, interesting. Wiggins, probable hip soreness. So you've got Wiggins, Green, KD, all on the injury report for tomorrow's games with their respective teams. There's too much smoke here. There is honestly way too much smoke for this to be nothing. I'm not even saying that KD is going to get traded to the Warriors necessarily, but there just seems to be this growing idea. It really started like if you look at Grant, is it Grant Asfith? I think his name is. Yeah, Grant Asfith. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly, but he is covers the Dallas Mavericks, and he's a well-known reporter in Dallas. And he said that multiple league sources have told me there is increasing belief that Kevin Durant lands with the Golden State Warriors. Plenty has to happen, but the Warriors' pursuit of this trade has been aggressive. Just figured I'd mention this as something to watch as the deadline looms. And then says, I only mention this because the Dallas Mavericks are 9th in the West. And if the Golden State Warriors make a significant move, the competition would be more difficult if the move transpires. Okay, so you had that. That was 4 hours ago. And when I saw that, that was the first time I really thought, okay, this is like a legit reporter. Yeah, I'm just flicking through Twitter here, seeing if there's anything going on. Jeez, it's really fascinating. The way this has kind of grown legs. Raymond says JK and Wiggs would have to go for KD. Or JK and Draymond, potentially. Chris says KD, JK, Curry, and Wiggs. Let's go. You know what? I actually like that quartet. I really do. The issue with Draymond at this point, and it worked late in yesterday's game, but I again found myself watching that game thinking we're closing with Draymond and Loon. There's just so many offensive limitations with that. Like, that's my worry. And Draymond was great. Like, his defense on Banchero late in the game was excellent. Had multiple stops on him. Had that really tough running hook shot that he made in the final couple of minutes there, which was extraordinary that he made that. He looked really good. But I still look at that and think we're closing a game with Draymond and Loon in 2025 basketball. Like, I don't think that gets it done. And therefore, obviously you keep Draymond, and your best lineup is, Draymond and KD at the 4 and the 5. Whichever you want to say is the 5 in that lineup. Like, that's the best combination. But you could also have a way of maybe being able to play, like, if you keep Kuminga, then you could have a quartet of like Steph, Wiggins as your 2 guard, Kuminga at the 3, or Durant at the 3, Kuminga at the 4, and Quentin Post at the 5. Like, that's the thing. That's the funniest thing I find about all this trade speculation is that there's a lot going on here with a blockbuster trade, but the Warriors are probably like, what are they doing with their center position? That's been the biggest question mark here. Now, for the moment, it just seems like getting a second superstar is the priority, and it doesn't matter basically what's left over. If we just get that second superstar, that's what we want. I'm just like, what are they doing with the center? Is Loon staying? He's obviously expiring contract. Can we get Durant and Vucevic? Can we get someone else? I don't know what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised if there are multiple moves made here where, like, maybe they do get KD, but then they go and try and figure the center rotation out with something else. And that's obviously what the Lakers are trying to do as well with them making the move for Luka. And now their center rotation is like Jackson Hayes. Like, I don't know. Robbie says if we could keep JK, then I would be down, but I don't think that happens. One Sonic says Draymond and Kuminga for KD. Simon says, just got in a quick update, please. What's going on? Yeah, so quick update is from the latest from The Athletic. The Suns certainly seem willing now to listen to KD offers, albeit, again, to quote, exorbitant asking price in any theoretical structures when the Warriors and Suns have had conversations. The Mavericks, unlikely, but have interest in KD. The Rockets also have interest in KD. The Suns covet Draymond, potentially, not Wiggins, as part of the return for Durant if a trade was to go down. Also have a level of interest in Jonathan Kuminga. So that's the big thing from a Warriors standpoint. Rockets are the main competition for Durant, and the Suns seem to have interest in Kuminga and Draymond. I'm just getting some stuff. Let me just double check here. Slater has just tweeted out that Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins are both probable tomorrow at Jazz on front side of a road back-to-back. Steph Curry not listed on the injury report. Moses Moody questionable. Warriors at Lakers on Thursday night. Trade-led deadline between games. What is going on in my house right now? There's something. Someone's on the roof. God, what is going on here? Someone is legitimately on my roof. I don't care. The top response is announce KD return, bro. And then, yeah, all the stuff is, yeah, my goodness. Just to talk about the game yesterday for a second, credit to Moses Moody. He's playing really well at the moment. 17 points, big corner 3, had the opportunity to close. He's been massive for the Warriors over these last 10 games. He's played, I think he scored scored 10 plus points. And I think he might have had one game with less than 10 points, but otherwise, basically he's averaged 12.8 points on 44.1% 3-point shooting in the last 10 games. And I'd imagine that with his poison pill contract and with the Suns being a second apron team and stuff like that, and Miami are pretty deep in the tax as well, I believe. Given that's the case, I don't think Moses Moody will necessarily get traded, and then all of a sudden he probably becomes pretty important here. If there's a 5-for-2, 4-for-1 trade, 3-for-1 trade, whatever it may be, where the Warriors sacrifice some of their depth, obviously, Moses Moody's form is an encouraging factor in that. That abroad guy says, I think the Suns would rather get rid of Booker than KD. Booker would probably have more value, but he's also younger. Like, they could do a reset here and still have like a second run here, I suppose, with Booker as their lead guy. Zach says, pretty sure KD hates Steve Kerr. Everybody hates Steve Kerr, says Simon. One Sonic says, I'd take KD for Draymond any day. Yeah, the issue is it's going to also take Kuminga, maybe Pajemski, possibly, and draft picks. So who knows? Mark says Draymond and a packet of chips for KD. Patrick says trade Schroeder. Well, he had some interesting comments with who did that interview? I'm sorry, apologize. Was it? Sorry, I'm just double checking because I do actually want to give them some credit for that interview where he was very open with the trade deadline and how. This article here from Dalton Johnson. Sorry, it was Dalton Johnson who. Schroeder said it's like modern slavery. It's modern slavery at the end of the day. Everyone can decide where you're going, even if you have a contract. Yeah, of course, we make a lot of money and we can feed our families. But at the end of the day, if they say you're not coming to work tomorrow, you're going over there, they can decide that. They got to change that a little bit. It's really interesting. I was having a conversation about it with someone yesterday in regard to, for Australians, it's very unusual for teams to trade players without their consent. And I've long spoken to a lot of AFL fans about it. And in the AFL, like the players run the show because when they get traded to the team they want, right? They basically pick a team. We always find it funny. Like there's 8 AFL teams in Victoria. And yet if a player wants to go home to Victoria, they'll only ever basically specify one team and say, I want to go there rather than, I'm happy to go home to any of the 8 Victorian teams. Sorry, just trying to catch up with your guys' comments here. Simon says, so we are trading Wiggins and Dre for KD straight up. No, it'd be more than that. You got to include other salary to be like, I'll get on the trade machine in a second. I'll just read out some more of your comments. One song says, Green, Kuminga, Schroeder, Pods, 2 first rounders for KD. Simon says, that's a great trade for the Suns. Robbie says, I still want Turner and Mathurin. One Tony says, there's no way Kuminga won't be in the trade. They need value for KD. I tend to agree with that. Simon says, if you can keep Wiggins and JK and get KD, that's a W. New Jersey says, if Jimmy lands in Phoenix and KD won't be traded to the Warriors, so be aware of that. Yep. So do you know who holds all the cards here? Do you know who's the key to unlocking a Warriors trade? Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is the key here because, again, as I kind of mentioned before, if he just completely refuses to go anywhere else, right, and or like Phoenix can't get another team to take on his contract, but it's about Beal just standing pat and saying, I'm not going anywhere, then all of a sudden that means that, one, Phoenix might think about a reset because they believe, look, we're not really going anywhere with this trio. We're 25 and 24. We've got the league's highest payroll. We've got no real future assets. Let's recoup some assets. Let's take on maybe a bit more like short-term money. Like the Warriors have plenty of expiring contracts. Let's move KD. Or they actually use Durant's contract as a means to get Butler and a bunch of assets. So it's really down to Bradley Beal. And so for Warrior fans, we have to hope that Bradley Beal does not change his mind whatsoever in the next 36, 48 hours. That he is just like steadfast. I'm staying in Phoenix, not going anywhere, digging his heels in. That's our best way of getting Kevin Durant. Just catching up here. Simon says they should try Booker. Denix says, is KD enough, though? We will need a few more pieces. Yeah, I kind of spoke about that at the start in terms of is Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and whatever's left over, is that enough to be in championship contention? Maybe not. But does that mean you don't make the trade? Like, if you're just better and you're also like a more entertaining team to watch, a bit more exciting, is that enough? Khan says we are trading for an old superstar. I'll tell you what, Steve sounded like he was on board. Steve sounded like he was on board when he said, sorry, I'm just going to get this quote up directly as well. I think he was on 95.7 the game. Just in the last hour or so. So Steve was asked if at age 36, Kevin Durant looks like the same player to you that you coached. And Steve said, yeah, he's timeless. He really is. He's just a beautiful basketball player, maybe the smoothest scorer that's ever played the game. Also said in regard to Andrew Wiggins, there's a reason his name is out there. He's a really good player and he's on a contract that's possible to put into big trades to go out and get somebody you've got your eye on. This is how the league works. I don't know. He's not really shutting it down, is he? One signing says KD will be like LeBron. He will get at least 20 points per game for a few years. Yeah. I mean, what's KD's numbers this year? I think he's still I know his numbers last year were just insane. I suppose the injury stuff is a little bit of a concern. Like he does miss games a little bit. But just having a look, he's 26.9 points per game on 52.4% shooting, 39.8% from three on nearly 6 attempts. He's 6.1 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.3 blocks. He's pretty much, his numbers are just like the same year to year. Like he's just a superstar. Like last year, 27.1 on 52.3, 41.3% from three. So like he just puts up the numbers. He literally just puts up the same numbers over and over and over again. And they're they're beautiful numbers. They're elite. He's one of the greatest players in the history of the league. You don't need to talk me into it too much, I don't think. Someone says you need to go check that roof. I think they're off now. I don't know. I live in an apartment complex, so I think they're probably just doing some work anyway. But I'm on the top floor, so I can actually hear it quite significantly. Khan says our defense will suck if this trade lands our way. Yeah, well, if you're trading Draymond for KD and that's kind of the biggest piece going out, then clearly that's a worry. If you keep Wiggins, then they're also like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's both of them. And then maybe there's a way you could trade out some of your other expiring contracts in another move. Like, would that be I think that'd probably be too drastic if you're moving Wiggins and Draymond for KD, or maybe it's like Draymond for KD and then they trade Wiggins for something else. I don't know. All I do know is that Brian Windhorst was on NBA Today earlier and said that everything's on the table. Everything not named Steph Curry is on the table for the Warriors. And that includes Draymond. Jay Sean says, JK not going nowhere. We'll see. It's interesting. I think I really like the idea of him with KD, to be honest. I just think like having those two guys is like your 3-4 combination. If you can have a 5 on like a shooting 5 on the floor as well, like defensively be some concerns maybe, but like offensively, I think it just opens up so much for you. That abroad guy says could go a cheaper route with center for like Dayron Sharp or something and roll the dice. Sorry, just every time I get a buzz on my watch, I get nervous. God, those guys need to shut up. Khan says, I might be wrong, but how about Zion? Well, I spoke about Zion quite a lot yesterday, and if they can't get Durant, I really like Zion. Yesterday, Zion was my most realistic option. Now Durant has like surged into an actual realistic option. So Ghost says I'd go after Zion while keeping the young core. You can make an argument for that. You can make an argument that go and get Zion instead, and like you can keep Kuminga. You could actually technically get Zion just with the expiring contracts and still have Wiggins, Draymond, Zion, Kuminga pods. Most of your draft picks, maybe. I don't know. There was reports earlier that they're interested in Ingram. Please stay away from Brandon Ingram. That just makes no sense. Then says Draymond and pods for Zion. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to have Draymond, Zion, and JK. So I suppose one of them would be necessary to be moved. One of Draymond or JK if you bring Zion in. Khan says Kerr needs to get rid of that small ball lineup. Bobby says, why do people think we can keep JK? He gets paid in the summer, probably 30 plus million. So how would the Warriors keep him? Warriors literally can't afford to keep JK unless you trade Weeks and Dre. Well, I just did suggest that. Could you move both of them? I don't think they'd do that. I don't think they'd do that. You've got a point. If he wants 30 plus million, then how are you paying Steph on nearly 60, KD on over 50? Let's say they keep Wiggins, who's on 28, or one of Wiggins or Draymond, who are on like mid 20s. Kuminga wants 30. Gets difficult. But Joe Lacob, are you willing to go into the second apron? Are you willing to pay big tax? I don't know. Domain says Zion. A lot of Zion chat, and I like it. I'm all for Zion if they can't get KD. In fact, anyone that wants to argue that, I'd rather get Zion and keep the majority of my assets if you can get Zion at a buy low price and you can keep your young players. You know what? I get that. I get that. I think I'd still prefer Durant, but I can see the argument for Zion Williamson. Mohammed says, can we give up Moody and pods instead of JK? Well, Moody's on this poison pill contract, which means that the Suns just can't take him. So maybe if it was like a third team, but then the third team would have to give up assets for Moody. I don't know. One Sonic says, would be amazing to keep Wiggins. He offers more than Draymond right now. Yeah, the Steph, Wiggins, Durant, it gives you a little bit more flexibility with how you could utilize those other two spots. I just think I love Draymond. Draymond was great in his return yesterday, but because he's not a scorer and because he's not much of a shooting threat, obviously, it kind of limits you to what else you can put on the floor, right? And that's why, like I've been saying for months and months and months, like you need a shooting five. You can't have, again, yesterday, Draymond and Looney closing the game. It worked, but I'm just not sure that works consistently moving forward in today's NBA. And so he does limit you. As great a defender as he is, as great as the chemistry is between him and Steph, he does limit you sometimes in terms of the lineups. And there's one, like, why is Quentin Post starting right now? Honestly, why is Quentin Post starting? It's because, and Steve said in his press conference yesterday, like, he gives us so much lineup flexibility. Like having a shooting five on the floor just opens up everything in terms of what lineups I can put out there. And that's kind of the issue with Draymond and not specifically Draymond, but Draymond and having a bunch of other non-scorers, non-shooters like Loon, TJD, Kyle Anderson, and DNP again yesterday because he's just not a threat. Kuminga is obviously a scoring threat, but not necessarily a shooting threat. Like it becomes a worry. And in fairness, like if we got Zion, it'd be kind of the same problem, which is why a shooting five, I think, is still very, very important. It's why maybe there's still something that goes on with Vucevic here. Do they, like, I'd just be shocked. Like, it'd be amazing if they said, we're going all in. We're trading all this stuff for Kevin Durant. And then after the deadline, they look around and be like, okay, our starting center is still rookie Quentin Post. And you're going, you're trying to make the playoffs and go with this deep playoff run with two of the greatest players of all time, and your starting center is a rookie from the Netherlands who literally entered the rotation a couple of weeks ago. Like, what are we doing? Khan says we heard the same stuff last year. Everyone is on the table. This seems a lot like the Warriors seem a lot more desperate. right now than I think they ever have. Nino says it makes no sense to trade JK on $7 million contract. Yeah, but he has value. Like, you've got to give up assets to get Kevin Durant. Like, the Suns could talk themselves into him, albeit his value is probably not as high as it obviously it once was, because teams that, any team that takes him on realizes they're going to have to give him a big deal in free agency. Mohammed says, still want to see a stretch five, open up our best lineup with Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Draymond, and Vooch or Turner, Pods, Moody, Gee, Cam Johnson, and Post off the bench. Everyone else can go. Cam Johnson, I can tell you what, they're not trading for Cam Johnson and putting him in a bench role, because they'd probably have to give up multiple first-round picks by the sound of what Brooklyn want. Robbie says, if we trade Dre without giving up Kuminga, we would have a great lineup. Yeah. If you could have Steph, Wiggins, Durant, Kuminga, and I don't know. I'm getting the trade machine up. Is there any stretch, like Olynyk? Would we feel comfortable if Kelly Olynyk is because obviously you're not going to be able to get Durant and Miles Turner, and you're looking at the numbers here. So Kevin Durant is making, is it $51.5 million this season? Let me just try and cook. Warriors, Suns. Let's just make it. I'm just going to make it a 2-team trade. They're probably going to want Jimmy Butler. There's probably going to be a third team involved, but just for simplistic sake, let's just make it 2. So let's put Draymond in it, because the Suns reportedly covet Draymond Green. We're going to put Kuminga in it. I'm sorry. I know I'd love to keep him, but I just think you got to give up value to get Kevin Durant. The Suns aren't just going to get rid of him for nothing. So let's give up Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, Dennis Schroeder. Yep. And Gary Payton II. That's what I'm doing. We are going to get Kevin Durant and Monte Morris. I was going to put Tyus Jones into it. You know what? I was going to put Tyus Jones into it. I was like, they're not giving us Tyus Jones and KD, surely. But you know what? I think it's important to get a backup point guard in. If you're gonna trade Schroeder, then you go get another backup point guard. I've spoken about. I don't want Pods to be the backup point guard necessarily. So it's a 4-for-2 trade. Oh, the Suns can't do that. Oh, hang on, oh god, because the Suns are a second apron team, they can't aggregate players in a trade. So it's just going to be KD straight up. It's got to be KD straight up. Just going to remove. Oh, it doesn't really matter, does it? I'm going to remove GP2, and I'm going to put in slow-mo. Am I? No, I'm not, because they're already getting Kuminga and Draymond. I'm going to put in GP2. So it's a 4-for-1 trade. And the Suns, this is why it can't be a 2-team trade, because the Suns are just taking back too much money. They can't take back more than 51, and the Warriors, so it's going to have to be. Oh, this is difficult. It's literally difficult to work out the financials of it. Very difficult. What if we take? Can these guys shut up? Seriously, it's really frustrating. What if it's Buddy Hield and GP2? It gets you to 49.6. 49.6, and you give them Lindy Waters. Now we're talking about a 5-for-1 trade, though. Okay, so this actually works, I think. But like Phoenix would have to waive a bunch of players, and the Warriors would be left with like 4 roster spots to fill out. So it's just so difficult financially. So difficult. Khan says this is going to be one heck of a trade deadline. One Sonic says, imagine the wide open threes for Wiggs with Steph and KD. I'd love to be in the head of like Andrew Wiggins right now. Do you reckon he knows about all this stuff? He seems like he just rocks up, plays basketball, and just doesn't care about anything else. I think he had a thing a couple of weeks ago, like an interview where he's like, I haven't heard anything. What's going on, basically? Almost like Clay in that aspect. If the Suns want Draymond, it's hard to say yes. Wiggins is excellent. It's a tough call, man. Phil says, could the Warriors get... I don't even know what that comment says. Ghost says, I'm keeping the young core if I'm done leaving. They're the only bright spot this season. JK, Moody, Pods, Gee, though I don't think many teams will be calling for Gee. Yeah. I tell you what, these KD trade conversations, you better keep Gee Santos and Quentin Post out of those conversations. Jacoby says, is the Vucevic deal honestly worth it more than going all out for KD? Part of the reason I was just on the trade machine then is I'm working out if you can get KD and Vucevic. I don't think you can. There's obviously they were thinking about getting Levine and Vucevic, which was a combination of 63 million. You'd have to make another 8 million up to get to, which you actually could. If you look at the Warriors, like, so if you wanted to get Durant and Vucevic, for example, this is just really going over the top and probably unrealistic. But if you traded that's not right. I'm just working out how much like money the Warriors. If you traded Draymond, Schroeder, GP2, Slow-Mo, Buddy, Loon, and Kuminga, you get to $79.4 million. And then, so that's between 7 players. And then you could try and get KD, Vooch, and a bunch of minimums, basically. I don't know. And then you'd be left with like Steph, Wiggs, KD, Moody, Pods, Quentin Post, Trace, Gee, Lindy Waters, buyout guys. Vooch, you have Vooch. So you'd be left with a starting lineup of like Steph, Moody, Wiggins, KD, Vooch. I don't particularly love it defensively, but I don't know. I don't know. Phil says, could the Warriors get Durant and Vooch? Could they still get both of those in trades? Yes. If they're willing to trade 7 players, like literally there's 14 players on the roster. If they're willing to trade half of them, they can get both of those guys. It would have to be half of them because it would have to be those 7 guys I just mentioned. Draymond, Kuminga, and then all the mid-tier salary, or Draymond or Wiggins and Kuminga, and then the mid-tier salary guys, Schroeder, GP2, Looney, Hield, Anderson. Robbie says, I think getting Zion is better for our future in depth. One Sonic says, you still have Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson's trade bait for a center. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to work out is like, can you make a Durant deal and then have your other pieces to go and get a 5? Because again, as I said, I don't think you want to get Kevin Durant and then be looking around and thinking, oh yeah, Quentin Post is still our starting center. And you know what? The start of the third quarter yesterday from QP was excellent. Like his third quarter was outstanding. Like he was really good. I love him. I like him. I think he's a great young prospect. But if you've got Steph Curry and Kevin Durant on your team at 36 years old, still not sure you want him as your starting center. Jacoby says, what about Cam Thomas, an elite half-court scorer who has weaknesses but interesting thought? Not for me. Jay Short says, Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, and Cam Thomas. Mohammed says, I'll take Zion and bank on Kuminga's health to bring us back up the standings. Robbie says, I agree. Zion and Kuminga would be good for the future and fun to watch, assuming they stay healthy. Mohammed says, Zion, Kuminga, Moody, Pods, and Post would be an entertaining young core. Khan says, how about we get Zion now and Cam Johnson in the offseason? Godzilla, Dub should go after Zion. So there's a lot of Zion stuff. A lot of you guys want Zion, even above KD. One zone says, get KD and trade for Rob Williams. Okay, that's actually a good... Because I suppose if you traded Draymond, then the need for a shooting five is probably less. So you could have... Let's say they have to give up Kuminga and Draymond for KD. And maybe you're left with like Steph, Moody... Because I think Moody should be starting over Buddy Hield as it is. So like Steph, Moody, Wiggins, KD, Rob Williams. I don't hate that. I don't mind it. Robbie says, I think something like Mathurin and Turner can help us maintain our youth if you can convince Indiana to take Vooch in first. Yeah, I think you had that 3-team trade yesterday, didn't you, where you had like Turner coming to the Warriors and Vucevic going to the Pacers. Godzilla says, go Vooch and Zion. Jacoby says, Durant and Vooch means you have no depth. That's true. That is true. However, like, Guy Santos can play. Guy can play. Lindy Waters isn't terrible. And the other thing is the buyout market seems like it actually could be all right this year. Like, go get Torrey Craig. What's wrong with Torrey Craig? I don't mind Torrey Craig as a player. I don't know. Bobby says it's a 3-team trade. You have to do a 1-for-1. Jimmy for KD as the Suns are in the second apron. Then you have to send JK Dre to the Heat, right? Or the Suns have to do a trade with someone else and get under the second apron, then trade Dre, JK, etc. I know it's so confusing, but you're right. Yeah, like the Suns being in the second apron makes it very, very complicated. Jacoby says, if you get Cam Thomas, you don't need to give up insane salaries, but you would need to give up some capital. Well, you kind of would need to give up some insane salaries because if you're getting Cam Thomas and keeping Kuminga, then they're both restricted free agents in the offseason. And what do you like? Do you really want to be paying, let's say, $50 combined million to Cam Thomas and Kuminga? I'm not particularly sure you want to be doing that. Go says, I agree with Zion, plus the young core is the way to go and find a big. Jacoby says, Zion would actually help us now and later. What intrigues me the most is the fact that he could be at the lowest trade value he's ever been at. Steve says, with the emergence of Post, that shows that the Dubs offense is unlocked with a stretch 5. Miles Turner would be a game changer. Mohammed says, we've still never seen the Steph, Wiggs, JK, and Draymond line up in action with a stretch 5. Sucks that Kuminga went down as Post. Can these guys shut up? Sucks that Kuminga went down as Post started to break out and we won't see it before the deadline. Yeah, you got a point. I think that would ideally actually be when Kuminga comes back. If, let's say, for some reason they actually don't make a big trade here, which it seems increasingly likely that they will, then I think that does intrigue me, that lineup, having Kuminga out there but with the shooting fire. Because obviously it didn't work when TJD was there, but you just can't have, again, you can't have Draymond and TJD or Draymond and Loon together in 2025. You just can't. So Michael says, go Vooch and Kobe White. Don't hate it. Wouldn't mind Kobe White. And Vooch has obviously been a strong target for, seems like forever now. Godzilla says, we don't want to get older and still no chance at a chip. Yeah. I can completely see the argument why fans would prefer Zion. I can. Robert says, Zion is already big. Jokes aside, he looks fitter last I saw him on social media. Yeah, and just get him in a new environment. Just see if things change. Could be the wake-up call like we've spoken about Luka getting traded, and that being a driving factor for him to perhaps get in shape. Maybe that, maybe we could see that. Maybe we could see that with Zion, right? KD is still a beast, 26, 27 points per game. Yeah, he's unbelievably good. Jacoby says, I'm intrigued by a Kobe White Vucevic combined trade. I would do that, but I wouldn't want to give up Wiggins Draymond or Kuminga for that duo. So if you can get those two guys while keeping Draymond, Wiggins and Kuminga, which they can salary-wise with the expiring salaries and like Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson. Like that could happen. So I don't hate that. That a broadcast says that's Windhorse on your roof trying to get something from you to report. Here we go. Mark Stein. Mark Stein has tweeted, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's something to do with the Rockets. And amid a growing belief league-wide that Kevin Durant actually could be traded this week, sources say nothing has changed in Houston regarding its posture on a major in-season change. The Rockets, as covered by the Stein line repeatedly this season, want to give their young team a playoff shot. There have been no signals yet to suggest a possible audible at this deadline. Well, this is good. This is good for the Warriors. Good news, everybody. Good news. The Rockets, apparently, according to Mark Stein, no interest in a big trade. So that helps. That helps Golden State in terms of trade leverage because, you know, instead of Phoenix having the back and forth and being able to say to the Warriors, well, Houston are offering this. What have you got? And the trade price is going up. That really helps. Back to your comments. Jacoby says, what are your thoughts on a Brandon Ingram deal potentially? No, I'm not a Brandon Ingram fan. We saw it in the World Cup. He's not a Steve Kerr guy. Just not a Warriors system guy. You'd have to pay him big bucks to retain him. The only reason you'd have interest in Brandon Ingram is if you really want to reset your books and you want to say, okay, we don't want Wiggins on the team moving forward. And maybe that's like a Butler thing as well, where like you just get Butler for the rest of the season and say, like, they're expiring contracts. We're just going to reset our team entirely and actually almost put us in a situation where we've got money to work with. But then again, like if you're keeping Kuminga, you got to pay him. So I don't know if you're really actually getting any flexibility out of it. But I'm not an Ingram guy. Khan says, let's go get Ben Simmons in. Buyout. I'll tell you what, if Draymond gets traded, I'm just an Australian. I want to talk myself into Ben Simmons. If Draymond got traded for KD, I could talk myself into Ben Simmons as a buyout. I really can. I can talk myself into it. Again, I'm talking myself into like a 5-year ago version of Ben Simmons, but like similar to Draymond, playmaker, ball handler, defender. I can talk myself into Ben Simmons as a buyout. Dead set. Robbie says Neesmith could be a good small ball pickup. He has been a great defender. New Jersey. What about getting Chris Boucher, KD, Daniel Gafford? Don't think the Magic are gonna give up Gafford given Lively's out for the season. I know they just got AD, but I think they want AD to play at the 4. Angel says Dennis Schroeder is now available for trade, says Mark Spears. Yeah, well, it's as of tomorrow. Stupid LinkedIn notification. Yeah, so Schroeder has to be moved, doesn't he? Like, he's going to be moved. Babycake says GSW needs to stop chasing old stars. Robert says no team wants the Warriors to be good again. Go says we might be scared of the spacing with Zion, Dre, JK, but I think Zion alone demands multiple guys' attentions like Steph, but for the paint. So in theory, you leave Draymond open, but then he can just run a handoff. But they can't all start. Like, none of them are actually centers. Like, they're all power forwards. You can't start all 3 of them. Like, you could talk yourself into, and I think this is the dream here, is if, like, you're keeping Kuminga long term, you have Kuminga as a 3, and then you have a shooting center. Khan says, yes, we need to stop chasing old dudes like PG-13. The Paul George stuff. I don't know how you can watch Paul George play this season, see the injury issues that he's had, and then talk yourself into paying the rest of his contract. Like, the Warriors dodged a big bullet there. Baby Cake says, take a chance on Josh Giddey. Well, the Warriors did want to draft Giddey, and I know this for a fact because his dad, Josh Giddey's dad, told me. The Warriors had promised Josh Giddey that they would take him at the 7th overall pick in 2021. They promised him that. His dad, well, that's what his dad told me. And unfortunately, the Thunder swooped in and took him at 6 Well, probably not, unfortunately, now because I think Kuminga's a better asset. Like, you'd prefer Kuminga over Giddey at this point. So I think probably, fortunately, the Thunder swooped in at 6 and Kuminga, the Warriors ended up with Kuminga at 7. So the Warriors did have interest in Josh Giddey pre-draft. They're not gonna take a chance on him now. I would have thought. Robert says Ben Simmons for buddies. Simmons is still on $30+ million. So the only way the Warriors are getting him or anyone's getting him is through a buyout. Otherwise, he can play out the rest of his contract in Brooklyn. Go says with a big helping on like a Zion post up or something. Khan says Ben Simmons, Malcolm Brogdon as a buyout. I'll tell you what, if Schroeder gets traded. Sorry, just having a drink. If Schroeder gets traded, again, you need a backup point guard. I am desperately hoping someone lands on the buyout market for as a backup point guard. Whether it's like Brogdon, maybe. Like, he's with Washington, isn't he? Maybe, yeah. Lonzo would be perfect. Jacoby says Warriors could go after Kobe White and Pirtle if Vooch Price remains first round pick. I was having a chat with a Bulls mate last night. We played social league basketball last night. And one of the guys is a Bulls fan, and he was pissed. He was really pissed at the result they got for Zach LaVine. And I said to him, I was like, surely in trade negotiations with Vooch now, like, you can't expect a first round pick. And he said, yeah, no way. Like, for what we got for LaVine, you can't expect a first round pick for Vooch when you just gave up LaVine for very little. And yes, there's a contract difference. We get that. But, LaVine's a better player, even taking the contract situations into account. Like, LaVine's still, I think, more valuable. And therefore, like, you can't, like, surely at the deadline, they'll give up Vooch for a couple of seconds or something. Robbie says Ben Simmons could help Pods if Schroeder leaves. Yeah, well, Ben Simmons is actually that could actually be your backup point guard, really. Is weird. Like, he's 6'10", but that's what he is. Muhammad says Warriors receive Zion Williamson, Miles Turner, Jose Alvarado, O'Shea Brissett. We're getting Zion and Miles Turner. God, that'd require all the future picks, wouldn't it? And, like, who are we giving up? He's continuing the trade. Pelicans receive Draymond, GP2, Looney, Pods. 2026 first and a 2028 first, top 4 protected. Pacers get Schroeder, Anderson, Hield, Trace, and a 2025 second. I don't think the Pacers are doing that. I think the Pels would. So the Pels are giving up Zion and Alvarado for Draymond, Pods, and 2 firsts. I actually think you could do that trade, but you've got to send one of the first to Indiana. Like, I think you're giving up way too much for Zion, and Indiana just aren't getting enough for Turner, in my opinion. Also, are they taking back Buddy Hield? Also, hang on. Whoa. What? Also, aren't they just giving up, like, they're taking back way too much salary? Like, Schroeder, Anderson, Hield all combined to make, like, $30 million, and Turner's on like 20. So I'm not even sure that. I don't know. Did you put that in the trade machine? Did that actually work financially? Because to me, without putting it in the trade machine, it doesn't really seem to work. Robert says, I like Lonzo on the Warriors. I think he's a perfect Warrior player. Now, I don't like him on $20 million that he is right now, but, like, if he's a buyout, sign me up. Absolutely. Khan says, Warriors are desperately asking Shaq to suit up in a Warrior uniform. Jacoby says, I really like Olynyk as a buy low stretch biggie if we're to trade for Zion or KD. I agree with that, just because, like, if you trade for KD, then you're probably not going to have the salary to be able to get to Vucevic. I mean, as I said before, you technically can, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. Like, you'd be giving up 7 players, essentially, for that. So you get Olynyk, who's making, 10 million? Maybe. But then is Olynyk your starting big? Is that what you have to roll with? I don't know. Do you go back to Trace? Is Loon still about? Maybe unlikely because I don't know, maybe he is. Robbie says, I'm happy that Dunleavy's actually trying. They're trying too much, I'd say. They're trying so much that every team knows they're desperate. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to get a good deal here. Like, even if they get Durant, they're probably giving up everything they've got to get him. Khan says, would love Lonzo on the Warriors. Bobby says, I wouldn't touch Ben Simmons with a 10-foot pole, even if he's on like $2 million, like a minimum contract. Like, what are you losing if he's on a minimum contract? Steve says Turner's on the last year of his contract and the Pacers don't want to pay him $30 million. Yeah, okay. Surely they're not, like, they're still a playoff team, though. So to get rid of, like, to actually give him up, surely they're not just giving him away. Like, he's a really good starting level center on a team that made the Eastern Conference Finals last year and he's going to be making the playoffs again. Jacoby says, I could see Alinea can trace as a decent center tandem with maybe Dre at small ball 5 sometimes. Yeah. Well, ultimately, the weird thing is, like, if you get Durant and you keep Draymond, then obviously those guys at the 4 and 5 are clearly going to be, like, that's going to be your best lineup with those guys at the 4 and 5. Even if you traded Draymond, then maybe like KD as a small ball 5, which he's played a bit for Phoenix. Like, that's your best lineup. Khan says Chris Boucher for Anderson. I don't hate it. Mohammed says Tracy's from Indiana. Yeah, maybe they'd have some interest in that. Bring him home. Sorry, I'm just going to reply to a colleague of mine here quickly. I might finish it up soon anyway because it doesn't look like there's... I don't know. It could come at any time if we're being honest. Where are we at here? Yeah. What are some of the scores around the league at the moment? Anything notable? I suppose nothing notable happening in the West necessarily. Mavericks up 5 on the 76ers. There wasn't a trade already completed today between those two teams, with Caleb Martin going to the Mavericks and Quentin Grimes going to the 76ers, which I found a bit strange because it was the Mavericks giving up a second round pick to get Caleb Martin, and I think I might prefer Quentin Grimes. I don't know, they're similar-ish players, I suppose, and I think it sounds like Dallas just wanted a player who's on a multi-year contract as opposed to Quentin Grimes being a restricted free agent, I think, at the end of this season, and then he's probably going to get more than Caleb Martin on his next contract, maybe. How's Clay going? 1 of 4. Just played the 15 minutes, Clay. Just the 3 points, so not great. Max Christie, welcome. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 of 3 from deep. How good? Houston and Brooklyn. Boston are beating the Cavs. Chicago, Miami. Always willing to check out how Vooch is going early. Vooch is 0 of 3 from the field, has 1 rebound, and he's a -5 in 9 minutes. Not great. He had a 20-point triple-double the other day. Any other comments from you guys? Paul says, I say at least try to get Zion. Maybe some new scenery would be good. Agree with that. Mohammed says, Warriors, this is in regard to his trade, which I didn't mind the idea of if it works financially. Warriors keep Kuminga and Wiggins while getting a new elite front court. Alvarado adds energy. Brissett provides depth. So he's saying the starting lineup would be Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Zion, Miles Turner. Interesting squad. I don't mind it. Pelicans get Draymond for leadership, Looney for rebounding, Payton for defense, and Podziemski is a young shooter. Also add 2 first round. I just think they're getting too much for Zion. Like, you're getting 2 first, Draymond and Pods. Draymond 2 first and pods. That just seems like too much for where Zion Williamson's value's at. Pacers move on from Turner while receiving Schroeder, Hield, Anderson, and Jackson Davis. Robbie says, I'm scared to sleep knowing trades can happen. There's a legit chance I do not sleep for the next 48 hours. There is a legit chance. It's currently, it's 12:30 in the afternoon here anyway, Australian time. So I got ages, but it's, yeah. I'm always gonna have nightmares about the Chris Paul Jordan Poole trade and being like 4 hours late to the party. It happened like 3 o'clock in the morning and I woke up at 7. Khan says Middleton from the Bucks to Washington for Kuzma is getting closer. Glad we are not after Kuzma. Yeah, I'm glad. That's just such a mid trade. It really is. I suppose I prefer Kuzma because he's on slightly less money, but he's not having a great season. Urias says, I don't think Kerr will play that kind of lineup. Not small enough for Kerr's taste. Yeah, like Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Zion, Turner. That's good size. Robert says, interesting squad. I don't know if Kerr will play them together. Lol. Bobby says, Ben Simmons isn't what he used to be. He's always hurt. For a minimum contract, I don't care. Like, get an Australian on the squad. We haven't had one since Andrew Bogut, I don't think. I don't think there's been another Australian on the roster since Andrew Bogut. So get an Australian on the team. I need that. And on a minimum contract, I don't think it really matters. There's no real risk. Mama says, when can Schroeder be traded at midnight? I'm assuming so. It's February 5, so I'm assuming as soon as it turns over to February 5, that is the case. But there's also there could be reports here in the next few hours potentially that a trade is going down once the Schroeder thing is eligible. I don't think it has to be a case of we have to wait till Schroeder to be exactly trade eligible. Just having a look through Twitter again, see if there's... It would be the funniest thing in NBA history if nothing happens. Wouldn't be funny. If KD wins another Finals MVP with the Warriors, we'll be cheering him on. Steph is cemented. Good point. Bonte Hill, 23 minutes ago with the eyes emoji. As he retweeted, this could be the start of the wackiest NBA trade deadline we've witnessed, folks. Buckle the hell up. That was from a couple of days ago. Of course, Bonte Hill, Warriors pre- and post-game host on the broadcast, also on the morning roast. So he'd be in the know, and he's got the eyes emoji 24 minutes ago. There you go. What's this? That's nothing. I'll tell you what, if nothing happens, sending Draymond for KD going to be the funniest trade ever. It actually, the storyline, imagine Draymond getting traded for KD, just given their history. It'd be genuinely hilarious. Hilarious. I think I'm going to finish it up, guys, unless anyone's got anything else. Let me just check the comments again. Turner and Mathurin to the Warriors. Vooch maybe to Sumu and some firsts to the Pacers. Bulls get GP2 Anderson, Hield, Looney in seconds. Money works out. Interesting. Yuri says, I like Ben Simmons as a backup. PG should help with injuries too if not played too many minutes. Yeah, like if he gets bought out and the Warriors need to fill out the roster and they need a backup point guard, I'm telling you, Ben Simmons. Robert says, if GDSW gets Bronny, they'll get LBJ. So here's the dream, right? Let me talk you into it. They trade for Durant LeBron opts out from his player option for next season and signs a minimum with the Warriors in the offseason. And then all of a sudden we get the dream that the Warriors apparently want, as according to Jake Fisher's report yesterday, of having Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant all on the same team. Maybe they just, throw a second round pick to the Lakers for Bronny, so Bronny can reunite with his dad on the Warriors. Angel says Max Christie's now a 4 of 4 from deep. He's a good young player. I like him. He kind of reminds me of Moody, but he's been getting more playing time lately. And I suppose so is Moses. As I said before, Moses is in career best form and could all of a sudden become a really important factor if the Warriors got some of their depth here for a big piece. So his career best form's kind of coming at the right time because I think more opportunity could be on the horizon for him. Chris says, just took a nap and still nothing sounds about right. Good job, Warriors. Khan says, Chris Paul for Paul didn't feel real for me at first. Dre for KD, if that happens, Dre is probably knocking out MTJ and Lakem. Yeah. They'd make sure they're well clear of him. They're just calling him from a long way away. Han Solo says, don't get your hopes up. They're not going to do anything. Most likely they will just clear up cap space for the summer. But what is cap space mean? Trade Wiggins, get off the remainder of his deal for Butler or Ingram, and then you have cap space in the summer. But then you're just going to use that cap space to sign Kuminga? Robert says GSW becomes Team USA next season. Yuri says, wish we had Max Christie on the Warriors. Good defender, good size, and can shoot. I think he's moody. I feel like if you just moody over the last 10 games is just what Max Christie is kind of doing. And as long as Moody, if you can continue that kind of 20 to 25 minute rotation with him and giving him those minutes, similar-ish players, I think. Jacoby says, it really looks like we're going to make a move. Wow. Robbie says Moody needs to start over Hield. Yeah, I would need to see that tomorrow moving forward. The Warriors' best lineup right now, and no one really cares because the team's probably going to change drastically in the next day here. Could change drastically in the next hour. But the Warriors' best lineup right now, I think, is Steph, Moody, Wiggins, Draymond, and probably still Quentin Post. That'd be my starting five. Bobby said he left the morning roast. Was that Bonte? Sorry, my apologies. All right, I think I'm going to finish it up. Been going for over an hour again. Good news. There wasn't much news in this episode or this live stream, except for the fact that the Rockets don't appear to be wanting to make a significant move. And so, therefore, that helps. Who is this guy? Andrew Yang, entrepreneur, has 1.7 million followers. If you've got that many followers, you probably have some intel, maybe. And he said, I feel like Kevin Durant or Jimmy Butler winds up on the Warriors. That team should go all out to contend. Steph needs help. Who's Andrew Yang? Does someone in America know who Andrew Yang is? That someone, because he's got all these things in his timeline. He's got 1.7 million followers. Is he some important guy in America? I've never heard of him. Chris says next time we talk, we may have Ben Simmons. How good. I'm looking forward to it. Mohammed says Steph, Wiggins, Kuminga, Zion, Turner with a bench of Alvarado, Waters, Moody, Brissett, and Quentin Post with Guy Santos, Jackson Rowe, Kevin Knox also on the roster. Yes, Khan, I will be back streaming if any news pops out. I've always, if anything like breaking news comes out, I've got to prioritize writing about it, which is why I didn't start this stream till 45 minutes after the Athletic report actually came out. So if any news happens, heads up, guys, then you can probably assume that I'll probably write about it for like an hour, depending on what other colleagues of mine write about it too. And then I'll probably be on a stream. So it wouldn't be an instant stream because my writing does take priority. All right, I'm going to finish it up. Another hour, 15 minutes. It's like the third straight day of like over an hour live stream. So I appreciate you guys, as always. I appreciate those of you that are watching on the replay, or if you're listening on your podcast feed. Warriors could be about to trade for Kevin Durant. I'm going to still say could, but there is rising possibility here, I think. Everything seems to be pointing in that direction. And we'll wait and see. It could be for Draymond Green. Draymond Green, who has been a franchise legend, who has been here for what are we up to? 14 years? 13 years? Well, he got drafted in 2012, didn't he? So he's been here for 13 years. Yeah. He could be no longer a Warrior as of like tomorrow or the next couple of hours. Which would just be what, like trading for Kevin Durant is one thing, but trading Draymond Green, that'd be another. So we'll wait and see. Thanks again, guys. Much appreciated. And as before, if there is more breaking news, potentially a trade, whatever go down, then I'll be back on for another stream to react to it. All right. Much appreciated again, guys.